not only about digital devices, but also about media literacy in general. So this is the post they had yesterday, which was about the EduBox sexting. I might see some people, what is an EduBox? Well, they explain it as well. An EduBox is an educational concept for secondary education. It's something that students can use individually or in small groups. It's a combination of text, audiovisual material, and a lot of practice. When in the EduBox on sexting, it's the topics are: what is sexting? What if I want to do sexting? How can I do it without breaking the law, without damaging anybody or anything? What can I do when it goes wrong, and where can I find more resources? And then, of course, the last slide they're using is, if you want to test it yourself, click on the link in bio. So the communication strategies on how to promote media literacy to teachers or teachers to be. That's the last group. But of course, as I said, we have now 36 and we need 100. We need you. We need you, or at least we need your inspiring practices. I don't know how many of you are working in teacher education or have affiliation with teacher education. We need your inspiring practices. We have a form that you can fill in. So please, if you have inspiring practice that you say, well, Bert, I have something better in my country, please share it with us. Please share it with the rest of Europe or even with the world. Share it with us, or share this form with people you know that are working in teacher education. This is about the repository. As Sally said, I would focus more on the training modules. The training modules is a second objective that we are having in this work package. The aim is to have 5 online modules in English, designed for standalone use. We will use the Teachable platform for those who might be interested. So people, if you are interested yourself, you can do it yourself, but also those modules should be used in larger programs, maybe in your program. So we will make them available for teacher trainees all over Europe, all over the world, that they can use them in their own teaching programs to help their students, their attendees, to become more media literate and good media literacy trainers or media literacy teachers. So we will provide all text and subtitling for local translation. That's something that we will be doing. So of course, we won't translate a video into Slovakian because, well, we don't know any Slovakian, nobody in our group. But if you want to subtitle it in Slovakian, you can do it yourself. The content of the modules I will present is not created by me or by my colleagues at Mediawijs alone. We have, of course, a network of teacher trainers. So we have bi-monthly meetings for those who, Sally explained this, but for those who have attended, you might recognize yourself, I don't know. But we have asked over there, so what should be in it? People provided us with ideas, with feedback on first proposals, but we also had an in real life meeting with this wonderful group of people, our external advisory board, people from, I guess, 13 countries. I don't remember, but at least a lot of countries in Europe. We gather together, we reflect on not only about the online modules, but also about the other things that we are doing in the TeaMLit project. And we got some, in those 2 days, we got some really interesting feedback from them. So what came out was the content should aim both pre-service and in-service teachers, because pre-service teachers, well, they are pre-service, those teachers are still studying, they need to start, so they definitely need to address media literacy. But all those one in service, maybe they didn't have any training in media literacy, or possibly they didn't have any training in media literacy. So for them, it's definitely very important to have some extra training options. We came out that we should focus on didactics and pedagogical methodologies and not on the knowledge itself. So not focus on, for example, AI or disinformation specifically, because there are a lot of trainings about that as well. And of course, definitely about AI, what we create right now might be outdated in 2 weeks because things are changing very rapidly. So one of the main questions that came up was how to build an effective media literacy activity. That is something that we should address as well. And we should focus on the needs of the field. So the pupils, the colleagues, the school, that is something that was was said as well. And we should differentiate between the micro, meso, and macro level in the different modules. Micro level is then the teaching level, meso level is you and your colleagues, macro level is your school or even your community. That is what was it. This is still work in progress. Is why we're presenting it to you. So we're hoping to get some feedback as well. So feel free to have to spill your gut if you want. We are having 5+1 modules. The first one is an introduction module. I will focus on module 0, 1, 2, and 3 today. 4 and 5, it would take too much time, but to be honest, we're still working on those two as well. So let's focus on the micro level modules today. First, module 1, of course, it's a welcoming module. We'll say hi to everybody, and we'll explain the aim of the different modules. We'll explain that the first 3 modules are more about you as a person, how can you become more media literate, and how can you individually teach media literacy. The 4th one is, okay, how can you inspire other colleagues? And the 5th one is how to embed media literacy on a school level, policy level, etc. And we will explain how to get the certificate for this course. We don't know it yet either, so it needs to be decided, but people will definitely ask for it. So we will explain that in that introductory module. Module 1, we call it Me, Myself, and My Media Literacy. This is, of course, a working title, but there will be different steps in this module. So first, it's like, okay, getting some connection with the attendee. So it's reflection on your own media use. We will have a quiz. Okay, what are you using? And it's actually, this quiz is, as you can see, it's about news articles, it's about communication channels, it's about creation of media. So it's showing that there are, when we're talking about media, it's not only about critical media, it's being critical about media. It's not about communicating only. It's about different aspects, different kind of media use that we want to introduce as well. So this is an introductory quiz that we want to have. After the connection with the personal level, there is some concepts that we want to introduce, at least one concept, which is media literacy. So we're using a lot of media. So media literacy is important, but when we're talking about media literacy, what are we talking about? We will explain the definition of media literacy by the European Commission, because we cannot use the Flemish one or the Finnish one. Why? We could, but we will take the broader, or at least the common European one. And there will be, of course, an assignment, check your local definition, because at least the Flemish definition and the European definition, they they are in line, but they have some differences. What are the differences? So this is the first assignment that we're having. Another step is, okay, how media literate am I then? Okay, I know what media literacy is, but am I a media literate person? The VUB, the Free University of Brussels, have created with us, with Mediawijs a few years ago, a test which is focused on how do you use digital media. How quickly do you master applications, new devices and stuff like that, and how media literate are you? So these three combinations give you in the test, provide you with some feedback on how you look at media, and how you help others with media and media literacy. And you'll get some feedback at the end. In the Flemish version, we have nicely designed figures. For English, we don't have them yet. But for example, when you have done that test, you'll get, for example, you'll know that you are a wolf. Wolf is somebody who uses media a lot in a lot of different ways, who's very motivated to get to know new things and produces media a lot, and on the same time is somebody who gives a lot of support to other people. The hedgehog, on the other hand, is the one, yeah, that's, you cannot reach the hedgehog, and he's not very interested in media use either. So it sees digital media as a threat, and on the same hand, it doesn't gives a lot of support to other people. So that might give you some profile of yourself, some feedback, which will be used again in a later module. So another step we'll take is, am I a media literacy teacher? Because, well, maybe you are not thinking of yourself as a media literacy teacher, but probably when you look at the reality, you are already doing a lot of things that we call media literacy. Maybe you don't mark them as media literacy, but we do. So we'll provide the attendees of our course with an overview of topics that can consist media literacy, and it's based on the DigComp edu chapters within information skills and media literacy, communication, collaboration, creating digital content, security and responsible use, solving digital problems. So probably a lot of teachers are teaching about finding sources, search strategies. Some are working on bullying, and cyberbullying is already in there. Others are creating videos. So it's to give an overview. Probably you are doing already a lot of things that in your eyes are not media literacy, but in ours are. So that's an overview that we want to provide. So to end this, people have seen, okay, there is media literacy. I am in a way media literate, and I am doing already some media literacy. We will ask them to have a closing reflection exercise for this module, and we'll provide a guiding template. So what am I already doing? And we'll differentiate between the teachers to be, because of course, if you are a teacher to be, you don't have your own classes yet, you don't have your own practice. So that it's a different approach. Somebody who's experienced can use his own practice. The teacher to be need to engage in discussions with the mentor, need to observe in the classroom, maybe need to have a look at learning materials. But we'll have a guidance template. So with the main question, what are you already doing? We won't ask to give this to us, because of course, what are we? We don't need to fill our servers with content that we will never use afterwards, but it's some personal document that they can use. Okay, what am I already doing for myself? And then in next steps that can be used again to think further on. So this is module one. Module one is more about the reflection of yourself. Module two is having a look at the students, about at the pupils. What are they using and what are their needs? The main question is, what media literacy focus do my pupils, do my students need? So as a teacher to be, you need to think about that. So we will provide 3 topics that need to be taken into consideration when teaching media literacy. The first one is, okay, what is the media use of the young people you're working with? The second is, what does society want you to teach? And the third one is, what are the current affairs? What is happening in society, in your community at this moment? We'll probably have a video explaining the importance of those 3. And for each of those 3, we'll have lesson IDs, we will have assignments. I will zoom in on this very briefly. For example, the media use of your pupils, we could provide with some lesson IDs. Those are all tried out with different organizations. For example, you have the YouTube cinema. You ask your students to bring or to send a video that they love on YouTube, or that inspires them on YouTube, or that is creating a lot of thoughts, etc. So, but you're asking them, okay, what are you watching? So that is like bringing the environment of the young people into class. Or some people, I know teachers who have created a gaming tournament, because gaming if is not for all young people, but for a lot of young people is something that is very important. It's a form of lifestyle. So teachers have created a gaming tournament with old games, so games from the 90s when they were young, and games from today, and then it's an exchange about what is going on right now. Or there are a lot of conversation starters that we have about media use that can be, so things that, how to find out what my children, the children I'll work with are dealing with. So this is some of the lessons ID that we could provide in here. The second topic is what society wants you to teach. That's not, we cannot give some lessons IDs here, but it's more like an assignment. Okay, you have the learning goals that are written down in your curriculum, because that's actually what society wants you to teach. What are the media literacy learning goals within that curriculum? Don't forget the cross-curricular goals, because definitely here in Flanders, media literacy has more goals outside, so cross-curricularly, and not within, for example, language courses or history, but they're more on a cross-curricular way. So have a look at that, and go back to your reflection assignment that that was given to you before. Are you doing what society wants you to teach? That is the second topic. The third topic is, what should you do when reality hits you? For example, if somebody was bullied online and committed suicide afterwards, then it's definitely something that is causing a lot of hysteria in your class. Maybe it's something that causes issues. People will talk about it, and then you could say, well, actually, cyberbullying, that we would address that next year or in a few months. So it doesn't fit in the plan, but you should, because it's around, it's lively in your community. So we would start with a reflection exercise. What kind of stories from the last past years have caused unrest among young people, at least in your school, in your country? We would give some examples of teachers in how they reacted on current affairs in the classroom, on a sexting incident, on a cyberbullying incident, on conspiracies that rows along, and then ask to reflect, okay, what do you think about these approaches? This for module 2. Module 3 is then, okay, what can I do as a teacher in my classroom with a first reflection? Do I need to be the perfect media literate person to teach media literacy? Because that's a fear for a lot of teachers. Teachers think, well, I don't know enough to teach media literacy. I don't have knowledge of the online world. I don't know how to use my iPhone perfectly and stuff like that. So the answer is no, you don't need to be perfectly media literate. You can teach media literacy even when you are way below the perfect level. You just need to be aware of your own strengths and weaknesses. So we will go back to the media profile test animal, so the wolf or the hedgehog or the fox or whatever, and have some reflection on that. Then we'll go to, okay, what is effective teaching actually? Because before we zoom in on media literacy, we should zoom in on teaching in general. There is a very interesting collection of 12 building blocks. So there is a research group on evidence-based teaching that has created those 12 building blocks. So from what does the evidence say, what should you keep in mind when teaching in general? So I'll give you the 12 building blocks. I'll pick a few out of, for example, you should activate prior knowledge, because you then it's better than introducing it as a new thing. Anyway, you should structure your lessons, which is for all the teachers probably very clear, but an important one as well. You need to present material in small steps, not like, bam, this is it in what, no, it should be in small steps. You should use examples, because using in general terms is too vague. You should repeat regularly. So not giving like one lesson on fake news and that's it. No, you should give different lessons about it, because then it will stick. You should provide support when it's challenging. You should check with questions. You should use tests as a learning strategy and not just as a test at the end. Students should actively process the material. You should provide, you need to provide systematic feedback that makes them think. You should have a variety of types of exercises, and you should teach your students how to learn effectively. That last one is still a bit fake. The rest do ring a bell, in my opinion, for everybody. So it's good to have that in mind as well. And then we should zoom in on how to teach media literacy, because there are a few pedagogical concepts that are used for media literacy initiatives, and we need to decide which ones we should zoom into. For example, you have the 5 C's. So the edit box I've been talking about is using the 5 C's as their concept. So it's about connecting, conceptualizing, and I had them in mind before, but now I've lost them. But the 5 C's, that is like, okay, if you start, you should first do this, then that. The ask, don't tell pedagogy is an interesting one, because it's about questioning and not explaining, which is used a lot, and there is some research done about it as well. There is inquiry-based learning, so let the students inquire. There's creation that can be used as a basis of learning. There's the SAMR theory. All those concepts can be used to create your own pedagogical activities or your own teaching activities for media literacy. So we will decide on that later on. But per methodology, sorry about the writing error there. Per methodology, we will provide good practices, guidelines on how to create your own media literacy material. We will incite reflection with close colleagues on the practice, and we will have an open Padlet or something similar, asking for other good practices, because of course it's not limited to what we provide. But that was my presentation, and it's time for feedback. And as Sari already said, there is actually one main question. What do you think about what I presented? And then not about repository, but about those learning modules. A few sub questions are: is this the right content? Is this really stimulating teachers and teachers to teach media literacy? Do you think? Are there things missing? And if applicable, would you use this in your own teacher program, and why not? That is what I wanted to share with you. Let's discuss this in smaller groups then.
So thank you very much, Celine. I hope it was probably the same for everybody else in terms of what they were communicating. Anyway, I hope that you got something and it was useful for you. I'm just going to hear back from the three rooms, if we could, just to kind of get a summary and an idea of what it was that was discussed in your rooms, and if there are any specific points. Maybe Bert, we could start with yours. What about yours?
Then I'll leave the floor to Tamara. She's the one who.
Note taker.
Okay, Tamara, tell us.
Note taker. Okay, so shortly, everyone, all members of our group were really happy and excited about these modules. And we even discuss on technical issues like on what platform it will be. Will it be translated to more languages across the Europe? Then we talk, of course, on contextualization, because some of the examples for example, doesn't work for example, for Cyprus, the same as it works for Belgium. Some part of these modules have to be contextualized. We discussed on these things. Then we come to some more open things like that. As I understood well, that media literacy is still not really welcomed to education system in some parts, not only in Europe, but across the world. It's like some kind of taboo to teach teachers on media literacy and how much they should be engaged in this. And we came to one open question connected maybe to animal test, and we have to discuss it later. When to use these modules? How do we know that teachers are media literate enough to use these modules and other resources on media literacy? This is something to think about, because some teachers are really on some low level of media literacy. They are not media literate. So something to think about shortly. If I forgot something, Bert.
No, looks good. Thanks, Tamara. Okay, then we had our second group. I see we're losing people at the moment, which of course is always a pity, but it's good that you were with us. Thanks for being with us. And we're going to try and go. We will definitely stop by 1:15, but we may even stop a little bit earlier. But we'd like to get the feedback first. So, Lena and Lucia, how did your group go?
Yeah, everything fine. So I'm the note taker, so I'm gonna talk a little bit. Actually, we had a very great number of people in Portugal, so good to see that. Paula gave us a very interesting feedback on the building blocks. She really liked it. I think also Bruna was interested in the methodology. So I guess this is an important aspect of our project. And it's good to know that we are in the right direction in that sense. Interestingly, Fernanda also gave us a very good idea about how to engage more in conversations of what we understand as communication, what it is communication, and from that give people the floor to discuss a little bit more about how they see it, if they are listening, if they are talking to each other. And Fernanda and Paula, in that sense, made a very interesting analysis of to people to feel in their platforms during the models and during the learning experience, to be able to work together and to learn from each other. It's important to have this space where people can feel as part of a safe community, as we already spoke before. So they gave a very interesting ideas, to make it this self-reflection first, and then engage with the content. So she also asked, Fernanda also asked us to look a little bit deeper into the content of our models. So again, Chloe gave us the opportunity, once we can share the content of the models and everything. So I guess this wrap up, I'm trying to be as fast as possible. That's why, and if you guys think there's something that I'm missing here, please jump in. And Lina, for instance, I don't know if you think there is something that I could add here.
Oh, I think she's fine. No, she's okay. She's nodding. Good. Then for our group, Sue-Ann very kindly offered or was offered to give a quick report of the discussion that we had. Sue-Ann.
So our group, all of the members uh, gave positive feedback about the modules because it has a gradual approach within the 5 modules. So teachers can go slowly and thoroughly, and it could be useful for their professional development. And there were some concerns about the teachers because they all have similar levels, so they are rather in the same boat. So they are afraid of speaking for themselves and shy. And because of the heavy workload and what they do for media literacy, it is not very well recognized. So these things should be dealt with and encouraged, and teachers should be encouraged. And for example, light work within the modules could be one solution. So if I missed something, please.
No, I think that's fine. The one other thing we just at the very end, we just discussed the importance of whether teachers themselves need to be very familiar with the actual channels that their pupils and students are using in class. And we all agreed, no, good to have a kind of an overview, but it doesn't mean that you have to have, to have your own TikTok account, to be actually somebody who's operationally and using these channels. So we kind of agreed that it was more to do with the content and the usage. And then just we learned something interesting from Hilda in terms of a university that actually is now starting to have institutional-wide practices around which channels should colleagues use for communication, etc., which personally I found interesting in terms of that, having that kind of a policy in place. I don't know many universities that do that or colleges to do that. So thank you. This is all, of course, work in progress. Bert, what's the time frame for this within the project? When will we start to be able to actually share these modules with people who want to use them?
Actually, in our group as well, there was the question of, can we give some feedback beforehand, and that can be useful for us as well, because we can maybe, as we have seen in Zagreb, that educational systems are sometimes very different, and sometimes things that are common in Croatia, Finland, Flanders, Ireland are not that easy to apply in, let's say, Romania or Greece. I know that those 2 countries were specific, so that will be interesting. But normally we will have the program in mid-January finished, and normally it should be launched end of February already. So probably for those who want to give some feedback, let us know. Then you'll get some you'll get some the modules or the program of the modules by then, by the mid-January. So
they will be freely available we put them up on the Media and Learning website. So
yeah, so that's by the end of February. So the ones who want to give feedback, that's mid-January. Provide us with your email. The ones who want to use it and see what we've done with it, that's by end of February.
Okay. So if anybody is not kind of in one of the circles that we have set up at the moment, either I'm looking at Tamara, of course, because they run the Teachers Network, the Teacher Training Network. If you're not already a member of the Teacher Training Network and you'd like to join that, I think we may have some slides coming up, if I'm not mistaken, at the end, just to advertise where you can find out more. But in the meantime, just use our general email if you have specific content you'd like to feedback. But just before we do that, Chloe, just go back 1 second, just so I see everybody again, if you don't mind. Sorry. We'll just want to ask, are there any last questions or points anybody would like to make, or feedback you'd like to give us based on the session today? Thanks for your active involvement. It's really helpful. You can either stick up your hand or put on your mic. No, you've all been that moderator who's looked at a screen and waited for somebody to say something and hoping somebody will say something. Yes?
Hello.
Hello.
It's Paula.
It's Paula. Hi, Paula.
I have a question about the modules and how they're going to be tested. Is there a plan to test this with a test group at the end to see how it works, or just throwing it out there and see what happens?
Good question, Bert.
We don't have, the thing is that we have had quite a lot of talks with teacher trainers already. So what would would work, do you think? We don't have any impact analysis or evaluation, at least in
The formal
we don't do any effect measurements, but we will have evaluations by everybody who participates. And well, let's hope that there will be some future of this in some kind of way that we can follow up how it will be, but there is no effect measurement planned or something like that. Yeah, that's something that we needed to plan beforehand, and sorry, that wasn't in our plans.
That's I just wondered, because I think it would be
Good
really
question.
interesting for me to go through the process of doing this, since I'm not as experienced as the rest of you. And if I went through the process of using all the modules in some way, it would probably give you different perspective.
Yep. You know, maybe I just make that as a general call to all of you. I mean, this is a part of an 18-month project, as I said at the beginning, which has got its different work packages, and the task to evaluate these was not included. So, but the project is finishing in the summer, in July and June, but we would be very happy if anybody would be interested in joining with us to maybe to do an evaluation at a later stage in 2024. So I'm looking particularly at some of our academic partners and academics who've joined this afternoon, who might maybe find that interesting to do. We'd be very happy to collaborate. Somebody was saying
Sally,
Fernanda, hi, Fernanda. Yeah.
Hi everybody. No, I was thinking that we could solve this in a quicker way, because you don't have that much time, as Bert was saying. Could you think about a focus group, finding a group of teachers and trying to develop that like an intensive course and have feedback from that focus group before delivering it publicly?
What do you think, Bert?
That it's not the best timing, because end of February is also before there's examinations and stuff like that. So but that would be an interesting thing. Let's try. I'm afraid it might be difficult.
Okay.
On the other hand, it's definitely something that, as somebody asked in our group, can we use and contextualize for ourselves? So that is definitely, it will be standalone and can be used, reused, reshaped for everybody else. It can be tested. So if you are a teacher trainer and you want to test it by yourself along the way, that will be it will be possible as well. But I'll try to find a university college to test, but
I think what we might do is actually put it into Tamara. I'm thinking of the network, because we have the teacher training network is something that will go on after the project anyway. Many of you are already members of that. It meets quite regularly. There's exchanges going on there, and I think we might place it into that context and see what we could do in terms of doing some focus group work, or indeed to do a full study, which would be interesting. But you're dead right, Fernanda, and all of you, and Paula, thank you. for raising the point. It's something that, of course, we should be doing on an ongoing basis. So thank you so much for that. I think, has anybody got any other last questions before I just quickly summarize our next steps? No? Okay, then we have a couple of slides just to quickly bring you up to date with things that are happening. First of all, on this Friday afternoon, we are running a small mini conference online on media literacy standards and best practices on standards and best practices in media literacy in Europe. It's a half-day online event starting at 1:30 Brussels time and going on till 4:30. If you haven't already signed up for it, please do. The purpose of the event is primarily to look at the development of standards and examples of best practice that we can use and that we can build on from what's happening in other parts of the world. So to start us in the afternoon, we will be joined by Matthew from Media Smarts in Canada. We're also going to take a look at the NAMLA principles as well too. We're also going to talk about the need and the drivers for these kinds of support measures for those involved in media literacy here in Europe. And then the second part of the afternoon, then we will have quite extensive breakout discussions. So if you can still join us, please do. It's open and the session will start on Friday afternoon, 1:30 Brussels time. We will continue in spring with these teacher education series with 3 more sessions related to our TeaMLit project, this project. So please keep an eye on our website, on the Media Literacy website, Media and Learning website, where all the information is available. And for those of you who are hoping, we hope you will join us in Brussels for the Media Literacy Matters conference, which is taking place as part of the European Digital and Media Literacy Conference Week. It's between the 27th of February and the 1st of March. So the conference itself will be from the 28th, 29 and 1 March. And it's a free conference, but we do ask that you apply to register to take part because space is quite limited for the event. More information about all of these activities you can find on the medialearning.eu events page. I think that's the last of our slides, Chloe, if that's it. Sorry, just to remind you, we do also have special interest groups within our Media and Learning Association. So for those of you who are members of the association, we have a very specific one on digital media literacy. And this will be the vehicle through which the network of teacher trainers will continue after the conference, after the project finishes, the TeaMLit project. And that means I think there is one more slide, which is thank you for joining us today. You'll find more information about who we are and what we do on our website, which is the one that's there. And do sign up for our newsletter. If you haven't signed up for our newsletter yet, please do. We have lots of interesting sessions and we have lots of interesting articles and information to share with you. Thank you. Chloe, sorry for messing up the slides at the end. Bert, thanks so much for giving us a good overview of the modules. And thanks to everybody for joining us this afternoon. If we're not in touch again, have a great Christmas and a good start to the new year. May it be peaceful, happy, and may you spend plenty of time with your loved ones and have time to relax as well. We look forward to seeing you in 2024 if we don't see you before. Bye-bye.